democracy to the Bosnian community. That is a great legacy.
Mr. Clinton leads a large Washington delegation in the ceremonies at Dover Air Force Base, and CNN will provide live coverage beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific time. A U.S. Border Patrol official says 25 immigrants involved in a fatal wreck today in California were brought into the United States by a professional smuggler. 7 people were killed and 18 others injured in a crash in Riverside County. Authorities suspect the victims were illegal immigrants. Police say they were in a stolen pickup truck that left the road.
Thanks to your support, teachers are getting the tools and training they need to help children understand yesterday, witness today, and touch tomorrow. We're proud to announce that more than $1.2 million was raised during TCI's recent campaign for education, sending more than 400 teachers to the J.C. Sparkman Center for Educational Technology and providing much-needed funds to schools across the nation. It's the way they learn, the way we work together for the future.
This is CNN.
Now, live from Washington, the Capitol Gang.
Welcome to Capitol Gang. I'm Mark Shields with Al Hunt, Robert Novak, and Cato Byrne. Our guest is Democratic campaign consultant Bob Shrum. It's great to have you back, Bob.
Nice to be here, Mark.
Thank you. The remains of Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 other Americans whose Air Force plane crashed in Croatia were returned to Dover Air Force Base today as Washington and the nation mourned. Ron Brown was eulogized as an African American who throughout his life broke racial barriers.
You gave me the chance to demonstrate what my mother and my father always taught me to believe, that in America, a kid from Harlem can go anywhere, do anything, even become chairman of the greatest party in the history of democracy.
Amid the eulogies, there was an undercurrent of controversy about the Commerce Department, targeted for elimination by Republican congressional leaders, but defended by President Clinton, even as he spoke to mourning Commerce Department employees this week.
Every American should be grateful that at a very difficult moment in our nation's history, he made this Commerce Department what it was meant to be, an instrument for realizing the potential of every American.
The Independent Counsel, who have been looking into ethical questions involving Secretary Brown, announced that his death terminated that investigation. Al Hunt, what legacy is left by Ron Brown?
Mark, it may have been put best by Washington Post sports columnist Michael Wilborn, who said that this son of Harlem, especially for young African Americans, was a hedge against hopelessness. You know, in this program, I was critical of Ron Brown for his embrace of the money culture of his old law firm, and I think that clearly was his big flaw. But I think other achievements eclipse that. He was probably the most successful Democratic Party chairman of this age, played a major role in the 1992 victory, leaves a real political void. And I used to think, Mark, that the Commerce Department deserved to be eliminated. It hadn't done much. But he really achieved some really remarkable success over there. And I think with his many efforts, such as this ill-fated trip to Bosnia, he really fashioned a very legitimate and constructive industrial export policy.
Cato Byrne, how about Ron Brown's legacy?
Well, you certainly can't disagree with Al. This man is an American success story, enormously likable. Even his political opponents would find Ron Brown enormously likable, a man of extreme energy and enthusiasm. Even his tenure at the Commerce Department, though, doesn't justify the existence of an agency that costs American taxpayers $4 billion a year to parcel out favors to other corporations. But the reaction to this town, which is, of course, stunned by the tragedy that took his life and 33 others, really does show, I think, that there are Washington good guys and bad guys, and this Washington community viewed Ron Brown as a good guy. They knew him well. They wanted to ignore anything, any evidence of anything contrary to that, as opposed to, frankly, people like Ed Meese, who this town decides is not somebody who they want to smile upon. And I think that's been apparent in the reaction.
Good guy, good legacy. Bob Novak.
Everybody is enormously shocked by this. I think we all had acquaintances and friends on board that plane. It's a horrible event. And Ron Brown was an enormously likable guy. I wrote a nasty column about him, suggesting corruption, and he called me up about it and was friendly. He was not a mean man. But he also, I think, was a sign of the new Washington. You know, I heard a lot of things about him being a pillar of the Democratic Party. Most Democrats never heard of him before 1988. He was an aide to Teddy Kennedy, but he was not in the establishment. And I think he is part of the new culture of Washington, of big money, of lobbying, of insiders, and a very big government, because this was really unrequited love. He said, "I love you, business," and they say, "Get rid of the Commerce Department."
How about it, Bob Shrum? What do you see as Ron Brown's legacy?
Well, he was a friend of mine for 20 years, and I think his success really had more to do with big talent than with big money. He had a very rare mastery of both politics and policy. There are a lot of people in this town who are good at politics. There are a lot of people who are good at policy. There are very few who are good at both. He also had something, I think, very specially illustrated when he called Bob Novak, who's written nasty columns about a number of people and probably not gotten a lot of phone calls, even me, and probably not gotten a lot of phone calls to discuss him, at least not polite ones from me. He had a civility that was absolutely extraordinary. He was a tough, wily opponent in a political campaign. He never did anything mean or petty. In an age of negative politics, he was an affirmative force.
I'll tell you two things about Ron Brown that stick in my mind. The Democratic Party, once the party of delightful rogues and engaging people, has become in recent years sort of Cotton Mather, grape hangers, dour, everything's bad and getting to get worse and all. Ron Brown was the perfect antidote to that. Ron Brown always had a smile. He always had a can-do and a positive attitude. And the two times, I think, when the Democratic Party's spirits have been the lowest were after 1988, when Michael Dukakis lost a 16-point lead to George Bush, and in 1991, when George Bush went to 91% in the polls after the Persian Gulf. Both times, Ron Brown, and Paul Tully has to be mentioned with him because he was joined at the hip at that time, political director of the party, insisted the Democrats could win. And very few Democrats believed him, but they listened to him long enough that I think he convinced enough of them that they really had a chance in 1992.
I don't think Clinton would have been president in 1992 if it were not, and that may be his most important legacy, if it were not for the work that Ron did between 1988 and that election.
Let me say one thing.
I agree with that. I remember when he was first ran for party chairman, there were a number of people who said just as a Jesse Jackson person, that's the last thing
Kennedy,
we need.
Jesse Jackson.
Right, and what he
You're
really
talking about me, aren't you?
No, but I mean, it was a campaign against him among a lot of Democrats.
Yes.
Of course, you are a Democrat now, Bob. But and in fact, what he did was brilliantly stitch together some disparate forces in that party and had the effect of neutralizing Jesse Jackson. I'm not sure any other chairman could have done that. I think Bob's absolutely right.
Let me say one last thing. I think that it would be hypocritical not to mention, there was a lot of harsh things said about Ron Brown at this table, and I didn't say the harshest of them. And there's no question that this independent counsel's investigation was not concluded, and that the people at the White House were very, very worried about. A lot of the reporting is completely not mentioned there, but I think it ought to be stated that this was a real problem for the administration.
It was his embrace of that money culture that got him into that.
Yes.
Last word.
I think he would have been. I think he would have gotten off from this thing. I think he would have been cleared. As long as we're going to talk about it, I want to say that.
Okay, last word, Bob Shrum. Bob Shrum and the gang will be back with a new Iranian arms deal.
As the sun rises all around the globe, it brings a new day. One with new possibilities in the world of finance that never existed before. Because now, there's a new company. One that believes that every client is unique, as is every solution. If that hadn't already been our strength, we would never have become who we are today. A new company called Chase. Good morning.
When Tokyo Electric Power turned to GE for its advanced turbine technology, it gave Tokyo the largest, most efficient power plant of its kind in the world, which means more jobs for people back home and a better future for the people of Japan.
When I was a kid, I had to take penicillin for 9 years. Probably it saved my life. I am a pharmaceutical company researcher. We're developing these compounds for treating gram-positive infections that are multi-drug resistant. My hopes really are that someday some kid will have the drugs available to them to save their life.
Sunday on CNN Presents. 10 years after the world's worst nuclear accident, the effects of Chernobyl are just beginning to be understood. But as some people return to this region of the Ukraine, the threat of an even bigger disaster lies entombed under tons of concrete. Could Chernobyl be a nightmare waiting to happen again? Chernobyl, legacy of a meltdown. On the next CNN Presents, Sunday, 9 Eastern.
Welcome back. The Los Angeles Times yesterday broke the news, now confirmed by the State Department, that President Clinton secretly gave the green light to covert Iranian arms shipments to the Bosnian Muslims in 1994. That violated the international arms embargo that the U.S. had pledged to support. Why didn't the United States say no?
I don't know that it was up to us to be saying no. We are not responsible for everything that occurs on the part of everyone else.
It's duplicitous, to say the least, to tell us one thing while they're apparently covertly sort of a wink and a nod with the Iranians.
Republicans immediately made plans for a congressional investigation. Bob Novak, is this just Republicans seeking an election year advantage?
Mark, I'm afraid it's more than that. The former Secretary of State, Larry Eagleburger, calls it the height of insanity. He's upset about a terrorist regime's link with a Muslim state in the heart of Europe, arousing all the worst fears that the Bosnian government had. But beyond that, it is, as Bob Dole said, duplicity. This was lying by the government. In fact, they didn't even tell the CIA. The CIA thought it was a rogue operation going on until they were informed otherwise by the White House.
Isn't one inevitable consequence of this policy the strengthening of Iran's influence in Bosnia and that whole area?
I think Iran probably, because the West did so little in Bosnia for a long time, and gained some influence in that area of the world anyway. I find this Dole response extraordinary. Here's somebody who said, arm the Iranians, we demand that you, or arm the Bosnians, we demand that you do it, and also said, let's pay no attention to the UN, who's now suddenly calling for an investigation because there was an arming and because it supposedly violated a UN rule. It's ridiculous.
Well, no, had they followed Dole's advice on the Bosnian Muslims, lift the arms embargo unilaterally, which the White House at the time was saying was irresponsible, the United States would be getting credit for having helped the Muslims as opposed to building up credit on the part of Iran in both the Muslim world and in Europe. This is sort of the international version of we didn't inhale. The White House is now saying we didn't directly or indirectly see that the Muslims were armed. Of course they did. It's duplicitous, and Bob Dole would have at least had the U.S. getting credit. We wouldn't be stuck with the problem now of getting Iranian influence out of the area.
He might have had the U.S. in the middle of a war following that policy.
But the first thing you have to say is this is not an Iran-Contra scandal. Right. There was nothing illegal, there was nothing criminal that was done, as was done repeatedly in that episode. On the substance, I must say I'm closer to Kate on this, because unlike Larry Eagleburger, I think it was a good idea to help the Muslims. Larry Eagleburger did not. And I think it reveals the hypocrisy of this administration, Mark. They were blasting Bob Dole for proposing this. Last July 18th, White House Press Secretary Mike McCurry said the Dole proposal was a, quote, nutty idea, and it would be a danger to Americanize the conflict. Apparently it wasn't a danger to Iranize the conflict.
See, I think this is the old great game of politics that they used to play in the 19th century, where you don't tell the people what
covered those games.
Yes, I did.
I know.
And you don't tell the people what you're doing, and it's lying. You say one thing in public, another thing in private. I think those days are really past, and I really believe behind all this, and I think this is where probably Kate and I part company, and Al and I part company, is I do think that this whole regime, it's a regime, Muslim,
which regime?
The Bosnian regime, the Muslim regime. I think it's a problem. It's a tremendous problem in the heart of Europe. And now that we see that we were encouraging the link with the madmen in Tehran, I think we have exacerbated the problem.
Well, tell me, what's the objection here? That the Bosnians were armed, that the Iranians did the arming, or that the U.S. pretended not to know?
All the above, and particularly when we're telling the world to isolate Iran.
That's right. Our official policy has been to isolate Iran, and this is certainly not the way. This backdoor deal is certainly not the way. In fact, as we see now, it boosted their presence in Bosnia, and that's come home to roost because we have troops there, and they pose a real problem.
Do we have any evidence that suggests that any of the SAM missiles that were delivered there in the Reagan years made their way to Croatia?
That would be the height of irony.
Listen, this is. I think it'd be wonderful. I think the Republicans ought to make this a big issue in the presidential campaign. I think you ought to spend a lot of time on this. I don't think the country cares a lot about it, and I don't think it was an irresponsible policy under the circumstances.
Bob, more than politics is involved here.
I said I don't think it was an irresponsible policy.
It's the integrity of the country.
I do not think it was an irresponsible
But apparently, from the Los Angeles Times story, it was very tightly held within the administration. That Jim Woolsey, the former CIA director, stumbled on it.
The then CIA
director.
And that prompted the investigation. It was a terrific LA Times story. They deserve a lot of credit for this, by the way.
Last word, Al Hunt. Next on Capitol Gang, Whitewater's witness for the prosecution.
Capitol Gang is brought to you by U.S. Air, the airline committed to making your business travel easier by offering nearly 5,000 flights a day.
Some of your best ideas happen up here with us.
You know the best way from Terminal A to D in Frankfurt. You know not to plan a business meeting in Rome on August 15th. Everyone's on vacation. You know the fastest calculator in Osaka doesn't need batteries. And now you know the best way to fax virtually anywhere in the world from your business or home office. Only MCI OneFax assures you'll never have to resend a fax or pay for incomplete transmissions. MCI World, for citizens of the world.
As the sun rises all around the globe, it brings a new day. One with new possibilities in the world of finance that never existed before. Because now, there's a new company. One that believes that every client is unique, as is every solution. If that hadn't already been our strength, we would never have become who we are today. A new company called Chase. Good morning.
Until now, the idea for every new washing machine has come out of every old washing machine. And you won't find any new ideas until you look into this amazing new GE washer. New ideas like the largest capacity tub you can buy to save up to 75 loads a year, our smoothest, quietest spin cycle, and even an enlarged opening for easy loading. Our new GE washer is the best we've ever made because it's just one good idea after another.
Welcome back. The Whitewater trial in Little Rock heard the long-awaited testimony of former municipal judge David Hale, the prosecution's star witness against Governor Jim Guy Tucker and President Clinton's Whitewater partners, James and Susan McDougal. Hale testified that then-Governor Bill Clinton pressured him to make a fraudulent loan, adding, quote, "The governor said, be sure my name cannot show up on this," end quote. The week ended with Hale under tough cross-examination by defense lawyers who called him a liar. Where does this leave the president?
We're taking each day at a time, and we have not taken a position with respect to the president.
I see no reason for the president's name to come up again. I don't see any reason that it should have come up heretofore. David Hale hustled the SBA. David Hale hustled the Office of Independent Counsel to get a good deal, and he's trying to hustle this jury. And we're going to try to stop the Hale hustle.
Kate O'Byrne, did David Hale's testimony in any way damage President Clinton?
Let's stipulate, Mark, that David Hale's a liar. He's not in the courtroom in Arkansas because Reverend Billy Graham was busy. He's there because he's part of the conspiracy. And it generally, very often, takes a liar to convict other liars. You'd have to empty the jails if you didn't have these guys turning against one another, frequently in white-collar crimes. He seems to be, based on newspaper reports, holding up pretty well from some pretty rough treatment on the part of the defense attorneys. And Bill Clinton, in front of an Arkansas jury, David Hale looks like a sleazy operator. Bill Clinton might benefit from the fact that an Arkansas jury thinks so. On the other hand, if they get convictions against McDougal and Tucker, maybe they'll turn against Clinton in turn, so he's certainly not out of the woods.
Bob Shrum, the president, okay or hurting?
If this guy is the star witness, he's a pretty dim star, and they ought to close down the investigation. The fact of the matter is that nothing is going to happen to the President of the United States or anybody else, as far as I can see, because of the uncorroborated testimony of this guy. He is not only an admitted liar, he's an admitted forger. I mean, you go down a list of crimes, it's very, very long. It's also clear when you read the record that he went around shopping for a special counsel and was willing to say almost anything to justify the appointment of one.
You've always been close to David Hale, Bob.
I never met him in my life.
You're not a Bob
You're the only right-winger who hasn't.
Bob Shrum is wrong. There was corroboration by another former, by a present sitting municipal judge, Bill Watt. The question is that
corroboration of what?
The fact that he had told him this back in 1983.
No, but there's no direct corroboration of anything involving the
in 1986, whereas the defense counsel said that this was all made up in 1993. The people who are on the prosecutor's team who are not politicians, they're Justice Department lawyers, they think he is a credible witness. I think that the picture of the president involved in here, and it's put out in the book by Al Hunt's colleague and former colleague and friend, James Stewart, Bloodsport.
Book, wasn't
It's put in there very clearly. I think it makes the president look very bad. Is he going to go to prison on this? Of course not. But I think it's damaging, and that's why people like Shrum and the rest of them are just attacking this guy, because they know that this is a bullet aimed at the president's heart politically.
Well, Al, I agree. It does make the president look bad, as the book did, the whole sort of mess in the intersection of money and politics and business down there. But Kate's right that in big-time cases like this, you usually have a sleazy chief witness, and this guy really is a pip. I mean, he's as good as you get when it comes to sleaze. I mean, he not only tried to cut deals, he cheated his relatives out of money, he lied, he forged. He had 24 contacts with one of the most anti-Clinton, vicious, racist Judge Jim Johnson down in Arkansas. I mean, this is a guy who did everything. And I'll tell you something, just from what I hear from people, from including some Republican prosecutors, look at this case, say, unless Ken Starr's got a lot more, I think these guys may get off.
A point of personal privilege on Judge Jim Johnson, formerly of the Arkansas Supreme Court. As vicious a segregationist as ever lived, 24 phone calls placed to him by David Hale. Jim Johnson, now a Republican, as a Democrat, challenged Orville Faubus, then the sitting governor, in the primary, on his right on the racial question, pledging that he would eliminate the 6 blacks then sitting on the Arkansas State Democratic Committee. This is the guy.
Did you ever hear the phrase red herring?
You actually do get worse than this guy. Don't forget that the chief prosecution witness against John Gotti was accused of killing 19 people. This is who winds up turning state's evidence when a conspiracy falls apart.
But that's red herring. That has nothing to do with this case.
Red herring?
Yes, correct. That's what
you lied out. Jim Johnson helped plot David Hale's story.
See, when I see all the defenders of the president concocting all these stories and this violent attack on Hale, I say they are worried about something.
There's no concocted story. These are facts.
There's another serious problem here, and that is that Ken Starr, the independent counsel, has a lot of the appearance of conflict. And here's a guy, this would be a full-time job. I mean, this is real important stuff. This guy is going out, he is representing tobacco companies, the NFL Players Association, conservative foundations, giving political donations. Ken Starr either ought to quit all these other lucrative activities, or he ought to step down as special prosecutor. It looks like he's trying to drag this thing out for
Will you agree with me that the independent counsel now is a bad idea, as I have said for years?
No, I think it is. Bob Trump.
Look, this is all political. The D'Amato Committee has been political from the beginning. A huge amount of money has been spent on this, smearing the First Lady, smearing the President, and David Hale is the perfect example of what Bob's former party is trying to do here, the Republican Party.
Bob, now that you are a Democrat, where do your loyalties lie in this whole thing?
I try to be, as I am always, an objective and insightful journalist.
Bob, on that note, Bob, I just have to leave. Thanks for being with us, Bob Shrum. The gang will be back with the outrage of the week, if we didn't just hear it right here.
most of this airline's fleet is modern enough to meet those quieter standards 5 years ahead.
What a party. I'll never forget it. We started investing in no-load mutual funds with T. Rowe Price right after Randall's first big promotion. People thought we were crazy investing by ourselves. Few people did it back then. Well, we wanted to enjoy our retirement, work with kids, hang out in the backyard, all 40 zillion acres of it.
For over 50 years, we've been helping people invest with confidence. T. Rowe Price.
Bobby? When I grow up, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to build power plants. I'll design robots that can think. I'll build a tilting train. And then I'll create advanced technologies that reduce pollution to save the world.
Now, Bobby, where could you ever do all that?
ADD.
You turn a dial, and the numbers crunch, and the cubes crush, and the ink dries, and the word spreads, and the question is raised, and the answer is found, and the picture talks, and the doctor sees, and the speaker sings, and the plant hums, and the engine glides, and the blades fly, and the sky clears.
For people, for the economy, for the planet, electricity, the power to make life better.
And the day is done, and the two are one, and the cares all slip away.
Now for the outrage of the week, I'll go first. The California Board of Regents, at Governor Pete Wilson's urging, voted to abolish consideration of race and gender in state college admissions. They preached equality and fairness. But now, thanks to the Los Angeles Times, we learned that the regents, the governor, and other state pauls made hundreds of unpublicized secret requests to get friends and relatives into UCLA. What leaders? You rail against preference based on race or gender, but then hypocritically work for preferences for the powerful, the well-connected, and the well-off.
The Roman Catholic Diocese of Camden, New Jersey, bought 2 full pages of ads in the Philadelphia Inquirer pleading with President Clinton not to veto the bill barring partial birth abortions, and included a diagram, not a photo, depicting the noxious procedure. The Inquirer refused to print the diagram, considering it inappropriate for its readers. Is this a sudden burst of propriety, or, more likely, just plain censorship?
Kate O'Byrne.
The LA Times has defended their decision to run an editorial cartoon depicting a crucified Bob Dole, his head adorned with a crown of thorns spelling out the Christian Coalition, while refusing to run the popular BC comic strip with a triumphant religious message befitting the Easter season. How does one of the nation's leading newspapers choose to celebrate this season? With intolerance and bigotry.
Al Hunt.
Mark, at opening day in Cincinnati, umpire John McSherry collapsed and died. Everybody, the players, managers, and other umpires, responded by expressing grief and postponing the game. Everybody, that is, except Cincinnati owners Marge Schott, Cincinnati Reds owner Marge Schott, who was outraged the game was put off just because some guy died. Quote, "I don't believe it," she thundered. "Snow this morning, now this. What's wrong with having only 2 umpires?" End quote. This woman not only is a disgrace to Cincinnati and baseball, she's a disgrace to the human race.
This is Mark Shields saying good night, happy Easter for the Capitol game. Next on CNN, Inside Politics Weekend with Wolf Blitzer. What do you have for us, Wolf?
Mark, just ahead on Inside Politics Weekend, should the networks give free airtime to presidential candidates? Most networks say no, but a number of prominent broadcasters and political leaders say yes. We'll talk with 2 people on opposite sides of the debate. Also, Bill Schneider and Mark Russell, next on Inside Politics Weekend.
Sunday on CNN's Late Edition. Who is Ted Kaczynski and is he the Unabomber? A look at the case Sunday, noon Eastern on CNN.
Get this 35mm Kodak FunTime camera with flash free. There's absolutely no purchase necessary to get this Kodak camera free from the Craftmatic Adjustable Bed Company. Just preview our beds before you buy any bed.
I hate this bed. You look so miserable in that ordinary flat bed. You need an adjustable bed. Look, Craftmatic's affordable money-saving Model 2 and 3 beds adjust to all these comfortable positions, offer optional heat and massage, yet cost 50 to 75% less than many quality flat beds. 50 to 75% less. Call to get this free catalog by mail.
Call toll-free and we'll mail you a coupon for your free Kodak camera. Plus information on the adjustable beds that cost 50 to 75% less. To get your free camera coupon, call now.
Call toll-free 1-800-822-9800. That's 1-800-822-9800. Toll-free 1-800-822-9800.
Find out who's in the crossfire Sunday, 7:30 Eastern on CNN. From Washington, this is Inside Politics Weekend with Wolf Blitzer.
Thanks for joining us for our weekend look inside politics, the events, the issues, the battles, the bites. In past elections, the media's come under fire for its coverage of the candidates. The electorate's come under fire for being apathetic. Now some prominent Americans think they have a solution. They've asked the networks to allow the leading presidential contenders to address the audience straight to camera, no fancy commercials, and no reporters for free. It's an idea already practiced in other democracies. Could it work here? We'll talk with Doug Bailey, founder of The Hotline, and David Bartlett, president of the Radio Television News Directors Association. Plus, Bill Schneider, our political roundup, and our weekly visit with humorist Mark Russell. But first, some background.
Steve Forbes, untested leadership, risky ideas.
Ads like this are causing increasing consternation among people who say they're unhealthy for the political process. Now, a letter is circulating among prominent members of the political and broadcasting world, including Walter Cronkite, John Chancellor, Robert McNeil, and Senators John McCain and Bill Bradley, calling on the networks to provide free airtime for candidates. Supporters say allowing the candidates to address the American public in prime time lets them reach the highest number of people without being edited or interrupted. The two political parties and Reed Hunt, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, say they like the idea. But not everyone does. ABC, CBS, and NBC say they already provide countless hours of time informing people about the candidates' actions and positions. So far, only one network head has said he thinks it's a good idea, and he's ready to back up his words with action.
On election eve, Monday, November the 4th, Fox will devote 1 hour of prime time to news event coverage of final presentations by the leading candidates for president, for free, and with no censorship on our part. No interviews by some all-knowing correspondent.
And joining me now, David Bartlett, president of the Radio Television News Directors Association, and Doug Bailey, co-founder of The Hotline, the daily insider's guide to political news. Gentlemen, thank you very much for spending some time in Inside Politics Weekend. Doug Bailey, you think this is a good idea. How would it actually work?
Well, as I understand it, and there are many different variations, in the ideal world, each of the networks, including CNN, would provide 2.5 minutes per night for the last month or 6 weeks of the campaign in prime time to the presidential candidates on an alternating basis. Clinton one night, Dole the next, I suppose Perot the third night, or maybe one night out of the week or whatever, to say whatever they want to say. But it would not be an ad in the sense of production values. It's candidate into camera. In the ideal world, the networks would not only be generous in providing the time, they would also be wise enough to figure out how to do it on a roadblock basis, so that, let's say, at 10:57 Eastern Standard Time, or 3 minutes of 8 on the West Coast, every night for the last 6 weeks of the campaign, one of the presidential candidates would address the American people for a couple minutes, saying what he wants to say.
On all the networks?
On all the networks at the same time.
David Bartlett, what's so bad about that idea?
It's a dreadful idea.
Most importantly, because the last people who should be allowed unfettered access to the airwaves or the cable waves without journalistic scrutiny are politicians. This is terribly dangerous. Any candidate for president, I mean, for that matter, any candidate for mayor has ample opportunities for access to the audience. They don't really need any more free time. I have no problem whatever with a network giving free time if it's of their own free will and not mandated by the government. But I think journalistically it's a very bad idea. These people need more journalistic scrutiny, not less.
Doug Bailey, they do get a lot of free time already, the candidates, and if they just have 2 or 3 minutes to deliver a carefully crafted, scripted stump speech, in effect, straight to camera, is the American electorate going to really learn more about them from those 2.5, 3 minutes a night?
Well, I think the history is, by the way, just let me make a point. The notion that the candidates for the most important job in the world to have 2 or 3 minutes a night for a month or so on the most powerful communications medium in the world being a terrible idea is really mind-blowing. But
well, we'll get back to why it's not why it is a terrible idea.
I think all studies show, and I think everybody agrees, that the moment that the electorate in the fall of each 4-year cycle, presidential year, really pays attention are the presidential debates. And that's essentially because those are the best opportunities for the public to see the candidates as they really are, and with pretty much freedom to say what they want to say, and to say it to each other, and that it is live. And without all the handlers, and without all the production values, and without all the spots. Now, it is possible that if the networks provide 2 minutes a night to each presidential candidate, that they will use it for the same speech every night. If they do, that they will lose the election. So I think the chances of this improving the quality of communications between the candidates and the public is significant. And does it diminish the opportunity for journalists to question the candidates or to have energy? Of course not. This program, I think, will still exist.
All of these programs will still exist, and the candidates would still, David Bartlett, have to go out and raise money and do all the things and have the attack ads. Would they be, for example, barred from doing attack ads, in effect, in their 2.5-minute little speeches that they would give?
Well, and the answer, of course, is no for 2 reasons. First of all, the premise of this whole free time idea is unfettered access. No censorship by anybody on the candidate, so they could say any wicked thing they wanted to about their opponent, and that's fine, by the way. The other important notion is, however, the Constitution. I mean, you can't tell a political candidate of all people what they can and cannot say. That is protected speech at the very highest level. Everybody agrees to that. I'm just saying that if the system is so crafted to prevent all these problems, it becomes unnecessary in the first place. It becomes just a silly idea. Doug made a great point about the debates. That is a very good way for the audience to see the candidates live and in living color, standing up there with no defenses, having to account for themselves and having to show themselves to the public. Why give them 2.5 minutes over a period of time to do that in a packaged way? Let's put the debates on the air.
If it is a really good idea, then why not extend a good idea? I mean,
But it's a very different idea. The debate is entirely different than these 2-minute bits on primetime television.
Who would decide who the candidates are? I mean, would the Libertarian presidential candidate or the Green presidential candidate, would they have an opportunity to participate in this free time?
I do think there are some practical problems which would have to be resolved. And if there was an interest on the part of the networks, which I predict there will be, in doing this, in all probability, they're going to have to get together, or they're going to have to appoint some kind of, with foundation help, some kind of a working group that works out some of the details as to who qualifies and who doesn't qualify and what the standards are and who goes on Monday nights and who goes on Tuesday nights.
It's pretty complicated.
There's some practical questions, but there are always questions. There are always questions in relation to the debates that have to be worked out.
David Bartlett,
Those are easy problems to solve.
Are the networks unhappy about this because it'll cost them money?
No.
2-3 minutes a night? That's valuable commercial time. for
It's
these
valuable
networks.
commercial time, but in the broader sense, when you consider how much money the networks spend on political coverage, all the networks spend on political coverage, when you consider what a relatively small amount of the total time that all the networks sell this time is, it has nothing to do with money. This is a matter of principle. This is a matter of journalism versus letting political candidates hijack the airwaves. The money is really irrelevant.
Whose airwaves?
Whose airwaves? Our airwaves. I'm always...
The public's
the
airwaves?
public's airwaves. I'm very suspicious. As I said before, I think it's in the public's interest, in the very important public interest, for the amount of journalistic scrutiny of candidates to increase and the amount of unfettered access that candidates get to the airwaves to be limited. That's in the genuine public interest, though it may not be in the politician's interest.
I don't have any doubt that journalistic scrutiny of the candidates will increase as it constantly has, and I think to a good value. I do think it's important to remember it is the public's airwaves. Now, nobody is talking about, at least I am not, and I think Walter Cronkite is not, and those who are promoting this idea, to the best of my knowledge, they're not talking about legislation. They're talking about action by the networks.
But in effect,
in the public interest, and they're not talking. I think they're not talking about the networks giving up advertising time. Well, they're talking about limiting some of the programming time, which means that the advertising revenue is not decreased at all.
But in effect, since the government licenses all of these networks to operate, in effect, aren't they under an enormous amount of pressure to respond if there is this kind of pressure from government leaders and from others in the political and journalistic community to give this kind of airtime?
You're absolutely right. It's enormously dangerous in any line of human endeavor for the folks who make the rules to be the beneficiaries of those rules. That's exactly what we want to try to prevent.
The last time I knew, Walter Cronkite, John Chancellor, Roger Mudd, Robin McNeil were not government officials. The pressure is not coming from the government. In fact, the pressure is not coming from the politicians. I'm not sure, to tell you the truth, that the campaigns or the candidates, the president or the Dole campaign, are wildly enthusiastic about this idea.
That's something we can agree on. History shows that candidates typically don't much like this idea, and even when it's been offered by local stations off and on for years, they tend to not use it. What they want are free 30-second spots, not 2.5 or 5 or 15-minute blocks.
All right, David Bartlett, one quick question to Doug Bailey. I understand the group supporting this is going to do a full-page ad in the New York Times at some point?
Well, at some point, and it's not, sometime probably in the month of April, there will be an open letter in the Times signed by, a couple dozen supporters of it. This is not an effort to try to sign up 50 million people. But it is an effort to try to reach and get the attention of the heads of the networks who can do a wonderful thing for this country if they choose to.
We really got to go at this point. Thanks to both of you for joining us on Inside Politics Weekend. This debate, I'm sure, will continue. And when we come back on Inside Politics Weekend, it's Holy Week and Passover, a good time to look at how voting patterns among religious Americans have changed. Bill Schneider has the story behind the story. And later, Mark Russell makes his way to his favorite Washington hangout for some Inside the Beltway humor. Stay with us.
Inside Politics Weekend is brought to you by AT&T, your true choice.
I'm always on the road, so I use my calling card every day. But MCI friends and family only covered my card calls to home, so I got AT&T True Reach Savings. Now, wherever I'm calling, I'm totally covered. Now, that's being backed up.
AT&T True Reach Savings. Save 25% on all types of U.S. calls on your AT&T phone bill when you spend just $25 a month. Proofs on the bill.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Savings on all kinds of calls. That's your true choice, AT&T.
I want to tell you about my home far away
My mother and father are there.
Strengthening the links of communications requires capital. In the last 3 years, Merrill Lynch raised over $50 billion for communications companies around the globe. We connect investors to opportunities and the people of the world to each other. For them, it makes a difference. The difference is Merrill Lynch.
At BASF, we don't make the cooler. We make it cooler. We don't make the jeans. We make them bluer. We don't make the toys. We make them tougher. We don't make the water scooter. We make it lighter. At BASF, we don't make a lot of the products you buy. We make a lot of the products you buy better. BASF.
Sunday on CNN Presents, 10 years after the world's worst nuclear accident. Could Chernobyl be a nightmare waiting to happen again? On the next CNN Presents, Sunday, 9 Eastern.
No one makes you believe like Steven Spielberg.
I'm keeping him.
Enter a world beyond imagination. Starting at 2 with Jaws, April 14th on TNT.
Welcome back to Inside Politics Weekend. Joining us now, as he does every weekend, our own Bill Schneider. Bill, you know, we've been all focusing on the presidential polls, but there's some interesting numbers involving congressional attitudes as well, right?
That's right. The pollsters do trial heats of congressional races by asking Americans, will you vote for the Democratic or the Republican congressional candidate in your district? Now, let's look at what's happened. Support for Republican candidates for Congress peaked in August of 1995, and it's been declining steadily ever since. And just this past week, a poll was released showing that for the first time, the Democrats have pulled ahead of the Republicans in congressional vote intention. Why has this happened? Because women, because lower-income voters, because older voters have been drifting steadily towards the Democratic Party. The same people who have been drifting towards President Clinton over Bob Dole. So what we're seeing here is the possibility of strong coattails, and Democratic hopes are rising that they can take back the House of Representatives.
Now, you're also taking a look at religious voters as well. This is Easter weekend, Passover. What's your sense of what's happening among religious voters?
Well, you know, they say that religion and politics don't mix. Well, they're wrong. Religion and politics have always mixed in this country. They mixed over the abolition of slavery, over prohibition, over civil rights, and religion still mixes with politics today, but in a way that's different from what it's always been in the past. Let's look at the story behind that story.
Catholics have been taught what is objectively true. Certainly Mr. Clinton, if he is going to come out with such a horrendous act which promotes abortions, late-term abortions, Catholics then should take that into consideration when they vote in November.
Historically, the religious divide in this country has been between faiths. Protestants have voted more Republican, Catholics more Democratic. But political differences between Protestants and Catholics have declined sharply. A new division has emerged since 1980. It isn't between faiths, it's over faith. Secular Americans and religious Americans of all faiths have grown further and further apart in their politics. Fundamentalist Protestants, observant Catholics, and Orthodox Jews have all been trending Republican, while non-churchgoers have become more Democratic. Why? Because, beginning in the 1960s, Democrats and liberals have supported a wide variety of reformist social causes, including women's rights, affirmative action, busing, gay rights, legalized abortion, sex education, required teaching of evolution, and a ban on organized school prayer. Liberals defend these measures as enhancements of individual rights. Conservatives see them as enhancements of government power. They believe liberal judges and politicians are threatening the values of all Americans of faith.
The frustrating thing is that those who are attacking religion claim they are doing it in the name of tolerance, freedom, and open-mindedness. Question: isn't the real truth that they are intolerant of religion?
By endorsing conservative social values, Republicans have been attracting religious voters and repelling non-religious voters. So the political divide in America today is not just rich versus poor, men versus women, or blacks versus whites. It's also, for the first time in American history, the church versus the unchurched.
Okay, Bill Schneider, we'll see you again here next weekend. Thanks for joining us. And just ahead on Inside Politics Weekend, our political roundup takes us out to the ball game where the commander-in-chief adds pitcher to his resume. Right after this.
I'm thrifty. Savings count. So I went with some long-distance company I'd never even heard of. Wacky restrictions and all. Hey, once bitten, twice shy. So now I have AT&T True Reach Savings. Any type of call, 25% off. Proof's on the bill.
AT&T True Reach Savings. Save 25% on all types of U.S. calls on your AT&T phone bill when you spend just $25 a month.
Can't miss.
Savings on all kinds of calls. That's your true choice, AT&T.
Fidelity Advisor Funds, created for those who invest with a broker, banker, or advisor. Fidelity Advisor Funds, available only through your investment professional. It's time.
What if my kids need shots?
What if I get transferred to another city?
What if I need to lose some weight?
What if I need an x-ray?
What if I need a new doctor?
What if my baby comes early?
What if I need blood?
What if I break my arm?
What if there were a healthcare organization with such innovative solutions to what you might need tomorrow that all you'd have to do is enjoy today?
What if my brother makes me a bug?
What if you didn't have to worry about healthcare? Blue Cross, Blue Shield.
You flip a switch, and the light beams and the water streams, and the air cools, and the building warms, and the shivers cease, and the smiles come, and the miles go, and the steel rolls, and the rolls bake, and the pot boils, and the paint dries, and the laser cuts, and the patient heals.
For people, for the economy, for the planet, electricity, the power to make life better.
And the story is told, and the dreams unfold, and the monsters are kept at bay.
Welcome back to Inside Politics Weekend. Time now for our political roundup. Monday of this past week was coincidentally April 1st, and you know what that means. Taco Bell ran a full-page ad in the Washington Post, USA Today, and other papers announcing it had bought the Liberty Bell and was renaming it the Taco Liberty Bell. Roll call, the Capitol Hill newspaper almost got us. Then we saw Enid and Joe reuniting, and we got the joke. It's no April Fool's joke that the U.S. Taxpayers Party announced it will nominate Pat Buchanan as its presidential candidate, whether he wants it or not. Republican insiders who know him say he's not ready to bolt the party. Spring. It brings cherry blossoms to the Capitol and opening day to baseball.
White ball!
And opening day at Baltimore's Camden Yards brought out all kinds of fans. We found a familiar face in the stands. Loosen up, Mr. Buchanan.
I'm going to be your catcher. You are? Yes, sir. You don't throw 100 mile an hour, dude.
The main political attraction was President Clinton, who threw out the first pitch. William Howard Taft did it in 1910 for the Philadelphia A's. So did Wilson, Harding, Hoover, up to Ronald Reagan and George Bush. How'd you like to throw out a pitch with Cal Ripken watching? No curveballs, Mr. President. Congress went on spring break this week, and Senator Bob Dole was no exception. He headed to Florida with his wife, Elizabeth. They own a condo in Bal Harbor in Miami Beach. Who wears short shorts? Apparently both Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. Note to their image handlers, can you do something about this? Senator Dole also took an evening cruise on his way to dinner. No, it's not the Sequoia. And for an evening's entertainment, he chose the company of a pig. Should help with the anti-Hollywood violence vote. President Clinton had a little more formal entertainment in mind when he and the First Lady hosted Italy's President Oscar Scalfaro. A veritable who's who of famous Italian-Americans were invited, including this year's Oscar winner Nicolas Cage, former New York Governor Mario Cuomo, and rocker John Bon Jovi. And sitting next to the president, screen legend Sophia Loren.
Viva l'Italia, and God bless America.
But not all the news and politics was funny this past week. A tragedy occurred when Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown and 34 others were killed in a plane crash in Croatia. They were business executives, government employees, and military personnel. They were on a trade mission to help develop the post-war Balkan region. Ron Brown was many things: a civil rights leader, a successful attorney, a major political force in the Democratic Party, a husband and father. His death was mourned by many in Washington, including the president.
Well, Ron Brown walked and ran and flew through life. And he was a magnificent life force. And those of us who loved him will always be grateful for his friendship and his warmth.
We'll be back in a moment.
You owe it to your children. You owe it to your parents. But will you have to risk your own retirement to care for a parent or educate a child? Into whose eyes can you look and say you just can't help? For in both, you will surely see your own.
I can't believe this has happened to me. I mean, the car tires are gone and the battery's
Everybody
gone.
goes through bad times. And you can see them change as you calm them down, or you explain something to them when maybe they were feeling in a position of powerlessness.
Robin, did you call a cab?
That's a great feeling. When something happens to somebody else, I want to give that back.
Thank you so much.
I think that's what this is all about, really.
Being in good hands is the only place to be.
Sunday on CNN's Late Edition, an 18-year search leads authorities to this man. Just who is Ted Kaczynski, and is he the Unabomber? The clues and the case, Sunday noon Eastern on CNN.
And now time for Mark Russell.
Well, we are celebrating 1 year at the Monocle here on Inside Politics Weekend. What do you think? And it is springtime in Washington, and the jonquils are in bloom, and the forsythias are budding, and the Japanese cherry trees are being picketed by Pat Buchanan. And some of the things that we have learned in the news this week. Do you remember a couple of days ago that photograph of Bob Dole by the pool down in Florida? What we learned from that photograph is that in November, if you want to vote for the presidential candidate who looks good in a bathing suit, you may have to wait till the year 2000. Also, we learned from that Whitewater trial going on in Little Rock, the United States of America will never have a President Jim Guy Tucker. Also, the James McDougal's real estate trailer will never be on permanent display at the Clinton Presidential Library. In the most damning allegation of all places, then Governor Clinton in that trailer pressuring David Hale to make an illegal loan. So you have a plea bargaining convicted felon's word against Bill Clinton. Las Vegas odd makers called it an even bet. And finally, a question that has plagued mankind for centuries. If the symbol of Easter is the Easter egg, why don't we have the Easter chicken instead of the Easter bunny? Well, the reason is the San Diego chicken would sue. Walt?
Okay, Mark Russell, that's all the time we have for this edition of Inside Politics Weekend. Tomorrow on Late Edition, tune in for a look at how the FBI may have cracked the Unabomber case. That's at noon Eastern. For now, thanks very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington.
This week on CNN Sunday Morning, 18 years and a lot of false leads. At issue, catching the suspected Unabomber. Sunday, 8 a.m. Eastern on CNN.
On April 26th, 14 modern-day gladiators will march into a ring to fight man-to-man. See Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend Huff Gracie, the Russian menace Igor, and the undefeated Awesome Conan take bare-knuckles fighting to the extreme. And another attraction, Penthouse brings the most beautiful and sexy girls of the world.
The Battlecade, Extreme Fighting 2, whatever it takes to win. Live Friday, April 26th at 6 p.m. on TCI Pay-Per-View.
Baldwin. Crawford.
From the producers of Lethal Weapon and Die Hard comes the sexy thriller that breaks all the rules.
So what am I supposed to do?
Figure out who's trying to kill you.
Two of America's sexiest stars. William Baldwin, supermodel Cindy Crawford in her film debut, Fair Game.
What are you doing over there?
Just fiddling with my joystick.
This month on TCI pay-per-view. Call and order the excitement.
School? I liked baseball, but not algebra. And I wasn't exactly great at either.
James? Scrawny little guy. Lot of heart, though.
But Mr. Johnson, the custodian, always had a good word.
He just needed someone to say, good hustle, 21.
And you made me think about my future. Keep the math up. Boy, he pushed that.
Every kid's a winner. When they find the right field...
Good hustle. Hang in. You learn a lot of things in school. Some of it you use every day.
The Trailblazers and the Dallas Mavericks. Thursday, April 11th, and you can get all the action live on BlazerVision. Call TCI's instant order number today at 1-800-497-7788. BlazerVision. Call today.
This is CNN.
Let us celebrate what their lives were. For their public achievements and their private victories of love and kindness and devotion are things that no one could do anything but treasure.
Under a cold, gray sky, a somber president remembers a close friend and says a melancholy goodbye.
How would you describe the mood up there? Was it peaceful, eerie, or a place you would want to go again? I mean, what kind of feeling?
It's certainly a place that I don't think anybody would want to live.
Inside the home of the man suspected of being the elusive Unabomber.
And a deadly accident in Southern California. A truck filled with suspected illegal immigrants crashes into a gully. Hello and welcome. I'm Martin Savage in Atlanta.
And I'm Jean Meserve in Washington. This is Prime News. Investigators apparently had good reason for their slow, careful search of Ted Kaczynski's Montana home. They say they have found and defused a live bomb in the Unabomber suspect's remote cabin. FBI agents say they found the device Friday at Kaczynski's Spartan hut, shown here. Agents describe it as a complete bomb, which they were able to disarm. The FBI says the explosive seemed intended for someone in particular, and they are trying to determine who. According to one official, authorities now have little doubt their jailed suspect is the elusive, long-sought Unabomber. At this point, however, the 53-year-old former math professor has been charged only with possessing Bob components. Reporters got their first look at Kaczynski's cabin Saturday, several miles from Lincoln, Montana. They were not allowed inside, but described what they did see.
It's certainly a place that I don't think anybody would want to live. It just had all the feelings of a crime scene that had been a crime scene for quite a while. The FBI agents were seated up the hill, just very relaxed. It just looked like a place where somebody had lived for a long time and was now empty, vacant.
It was not elaborate, let's put it that way.
But it wasn't really ran down either.
No, I wouldn't call it ramshackle. It looked like it was sturdily built.
Kaczynski was arrested in Lincoln, Montana Wednesday and is being held in the county jail in Helena.
Elsewhere in Montana, it is day 13 of the standoff at the Freeman compound, but federal officials are hopeful a peaceful end is in sight. 2 people were allowed to leave the compound overnight, and more could leave in the coming hours. CNN's Gary Tuckman joins us live from Brusette with the latest. Gary?
Well, Martin, the Freeman Wall may finally be starting to crumble. Nearly 2 weeks after this episode began here in Brusette, Montana, CNN has confirmed that a mother and her daughter have become the first 2 people to volunteer to leave this estate. They left last night. But just minutes ago, there was some more action here. It appears that at least 3 and possibly 4 people have left. Just a few minutes ago, some luggage and other bags went into 2 cars, and at least 3 people drove off the grounds here of the Freeman Ranch in eastern Montana. We should know more about this situation later. Right now we are standing adjacent to the ranch. If you look over my shoulder, you can see the 960 acres of land. You can see the buildings the Freemans have been in for the last 13 days. The main building, a house with the white siding and the green roof. That's the house where last night 4-year-old Mariah Stanton and her mother Val Stanton came out. They went inside a vehicle, they left, and they are now at an undisclosed location. We do not know at this point why they left. We do know Val Stanton's husband, Ebert, remains inside the ranch house. He apparently is one of the leaders of the group, according to federal officials here. Now, just a couple of days ago, a coincidence, CNN was videotaping, and we actually shot some videotape of the little 4-year-old girl who left last night. She was playing in the snow with her dog. The snow has since melted over the last 2 days. Her mother is one of the 2 women who was walking in front, but that little 4-year-old girl will actually be 5 in 2 days. It'll be her birthday. There are thought to be at least 20 people still inside the ranch house. We know at least 2 of them are children. The reason we know that, we saw them today. If you've ever wondered if children can have innocent fun amid a crisis, well, apparently they can. We saw one of the little girls today doing tricks with her yo-yo. Now, on Thursday and Friday, negotiations were held in an RV on the ranch behind us. We did not see any negotiations today, but that doesn't mean they weren't being held. They may have been held by telephone. Officials are not telling us at this point. We do know there was some action on the ranch throughout the day. Many times throughout the day for the last 7 or 8 hours, we've seen men driving in their pickups. They've driven up to the house, and many of them have been tightly clutching their rifles. So at least 2 people are out, possibly more, and negotiators feel this Easter weekend may bring them some good news. CNN's Don Knapp has more.
A woman and her 5-year-old daughter left the Freeman Ranch late Friday and were taken to an undisclosed location. Law enforcement sources told CNN that 3 to 5 more Freeman might come off the ranch Saturday. The new developments follow 2 days of meetings between insiders and outside negotiators. Friday's meeting in a motor home on the property Freeman called Just Us Township lasted 2 hours and ended with a handshake. After the outsiders left, a number of visitors crossed the fence and entered the ranch. These 2 stopped by news crews on their way out, just long enough to say things inside were fine. The state attorney general says some of those inside may have less to worry about than others.
In fact, most of the people who are left inside are much less culpable than others who are already under arrest. So, I mean, many of those inside do not face serious charges at all. So it really would be in their best interest to come out.
State Attorney General Joe Mazurik says about 24 men, women, and children remain on the ranch. 9 men face federal indictments for bogus checks and threatening public officials. Authorities taking note of the Easter weekend have decided to factor the religious holiday into their talks, saying they hope the season's period of reflection and renewal will prompt the Freemen to decide to end their standoff. Don Knapp, CNN, Brusette, Montana.
The weather here over the last couple of weeks has gone from frigid cold to comfortably cool right now, and so in a sense has the atmosphere. Negotiators know it is still dangerous here, but they're feeling a lot more comfortable with at least 2 people out and negotiations underway. Martin, back to you.
Thank you, Gary. We'll look at that with a sense of optimism. Gary Tuchman in Brusette, Montana. Gene?
33 hearses, 33 flag-draped coffins, and hundreds of mourners gathered at a twilight ceremony at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. The bodies of Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 other Americans returned to the U.S. earlier today. The military tribute seen live on CNN about 2 hours ago included a 19-gun salute and words from President Clinton, who called the victims of Wednesday's crash true patriots who will be missed.
The 33 fine Americans we meet today on their last journey home ended their lives on a hard mountain a long way from home, but in a way they never left America. On their mission of peace and hope, they carried with them America's spirit, what our greatest martyr Abraham Lincoln called the last best hope of earth. Our loved ones and friends loved their country, and they loved serving their country. They believed that America, through their efforts, could help to restore a broken land, help to heal a people of their hatreds, help to bring a better tomorrow through honest work in shared enterprise. All of them were so full of possibility. Even as we grieve for what their lives might have been, let us celebrate what their lives were. For their public achievements and their private victories of love and kindness and devotion are things that no one could do anything but treasure.
Funeral arrangements for Brown and the others have not been finalized. However, Brown, a former Army captain, is expected to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors.
One U.S. Air Force investigator says he will leave no lead uncovered in the hunt for reasons why Brown's plane crashed into the side of a Croatian mountain. Reporters flew over the site of the crash near the peak of St. John the Baptist Hill. The plane's tail section is visible intact with several passenger seat rows still attached. Investigators say the absence of a flight data recorder will make their task much more difficult. There is more to come on Prime News.
Just ahead, for several suspected immigrants on the run, a truck ride on a California highway ends in tragedy.
Demonstrators take to the streets to protest another accident involving suspected illegal immigrants. We'll have the very latest.
We'll also tell you about some young engineers-to-be who are matching wits and robotics in an action-packed contest.
Lower your right foot and repeat after me. I promise to be free. I promise to be different. I promise to take the other path. I promise to be unique. I promise to drive an Eldorado with a 300 horsepower Northstar V8, a suspension that reads faster than Evelyn Wood, and a body that parts traffic. Eldorado with the Northstar system by Cadillac.
I bought this sweater and it's faded. Yeah. How'd you wash it? Gentle Cycle with my usual detergent.
Right cycle, wrong detergent. Try Ivory Snow Powder. It helps prevent fuzz or fading on cottons better than leading regular detergents. It's safe care for the things you wear.
I've seen every card there is. Thousands of cards. Super 8's VIP card. It says, congratulations, your reservation is guaranteed, and you get 10% off. Life's great at Super 8.
This clothing store has great selection, but I run 250. All right, 260. And in my size, that selection is pretty thin. Well, I found a place that has great clothing selection for big guys. Tall guys, too. The King Size Catalog. Look, brand names, good prices, and perfect fit no matter what size you are. And convenience? Just pick up the phone and call. All the top designers, selection, colors, quality, all for big and tall men only. Shirts too short? King size, perfect fit. Squeezed on neck size? King size, perfect fit. They've got everything in here. Shirts, slacks, shoes, jackets, jeans, just for us big and tall guys. Hey, extra long ties, too. The King Size Catalog, all for big and tall men only. Only.
If you're a big and tall guy, be sure and write down that number and give us a call. Every item is guaranteed for quality and fit. King size, perfect fit. King size.
Seven suspected illegal immigrants died today when the overcrowded truck they were in crashed along a rural Southern California road. 18 others in the truck were injured, and authorities say 9 of them are now in federal custody. CNN's Jim Hill has the latest in this report.
Emergency workers pulled victims from the twisted wreckage of the truck in what a veteran officer called the worst accident he'd seen. 25 people had been packed into the pickup when it spun out of control and into a ditch.
It would appear the vehicle started gaining speed, and at some point the driver lost control of his truck and ended up overturning.
Authorities say the victims were illegal immigrants who'd crossed the U.S.-Mexico border days before. The U.S. Border Patrol says the stolen truck was on a winding road, often used by smugglers to avoid an immigration checkpoint in nearby Temecula. Agents say they followed at about 50 miles an hour, and what they emphasize was not a chase. The tragedy here comes at a difficult time in the debate over illegal immigration. Less than a week ago, another pickup truck, also overloaded with human cargo, led authorities on a high-speed chase that started only about 5 miles from here. The chase ended when 2 Riverside Sheriff's deputies beat a pair of immigrants and were caught on videotape by a television news helicopter. Demonstrations continued on the weekend as protesters demanded prosecution of the deputies.
You can't beat people like dogs because they come here to work.
Other protesters critical of illegal immigration blame the immigrants, who they say are becoming more violent and desperate in their tactics.
It looks to me like they resisted arrest.
The American Civil Liberties Union says the Border Patrol needs better training.
Clearly, the Border Patrol has an assignment that places it in a situation where its officers are likely to encounter overloaded, dangerous vehicles that are filled with people who are quite desperate.
Authorities are still investigating the circumstances of the Saturday accident. But for protesters on both sides of the issue, the skid marks that ended so many lives only continue the controversy over illegal immigration. Jim Hill, CNN, near Temecula, California.
Joining us now to talk about that truck crash is Ron Henley. He's a spokesman for the U.S. Border Patrol, and he joins us by phone from San Diego. Mr. Henley, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Let me ask, you say this was not a chase, but it was some sort of pursuit. You were following. What exactly was going on?
Well, the agents were actually watching traffic on a small road that's on one of the roads that it's used to circumvent the I-15 checkpoint. And they observed this pickup truck go by, and it was obviously overloaded. It had Hawaii plates on it, and the agents, when they ran the plates, it came back stolen. Mm-hmm. As per our policy, we radio to our dispatch to get the local law enforcement notified that we were following a stolen vehicle.
Were you following in a marked vehicle or unmarked?
We were in a marked unit.
Mm-hmm. And the driver took off after he saw you, or how do we know why he took off?
Well, that remains unknown. They were doing about 40, 50 miles an hour, and they turned off into another 2-lane road and headed up this hill and accelerated to an excessive speed. And when they tried to negotiate a turn at the bottom of the hill, they flipped over.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, as one of the, in the previous story we saw, there was a person who was critical saying that there's better training needed for your people, perhaps to deal with circumstances like this, overloaded pickup trucks. Would you agree with that or disagree?
Well, some of all of our officers are some of the best trained officers in the world. We go through an extensive academy, and so I tend to disagree with that. It's an ongoing process of training, and yes, I think what's missing the point here is these alien smugglers are the most callous people on this earth and have no regard for human life. These alien smugglers are the ones that really cause this tragedy today, not the Border Patrol.
Right. They are the ones, obviously, that instigated it, but you have to deal with what they start with. Do you think this could change policy in any way?
No, sir. As far as all indications, we went right down the line on our policy.
All right. Ron Henley from the U.S. Border Patrol, we thank you very much for joining us this evening. Jing?
Coming up later on CNN's Prime News, high school teams prepare for a national competition to build the smartest robot. How do these engineers of the future make their robots smart enough to tell a beach ball from a volleyball? Stick around and find out.
What's the behavioral contribution of people to an organization's revenue stream? And how do all of the capital tools, including space, technology, furniture, play into leveraging people's behavior towards the next generation of what the organization is trying to be? Because that's where organizational health is found, in the revenue side of the organization, not just in the cost side, though both are appropriate in their own balance. The key ingredient in all of this, knowledge, understanding what it is that's really appropriate to do with space, the service tools.
Jeep Grand Cherokee, four-wheel and off-roads 4x4 of the year.
Irving and I were married for a year, and then he became a pharmaceutical company researcher. His work got everyone thinking on new ways to fight HIV. There are many pharmaceutical companies that are working to develop protease inhibitors. Irving was very driven by the fact that life can be short and is precious.
TBS Awards Saturday. Tonight, Steve McQueen and Candice Bergen, The Sand Pebbles. The biggest night of movies on the biggest night of the week. TBS Awards Saturday, 10:05 Eastern tonight, only on TBS.
Tonight on Larry King Weekend, he is known for roles of biblical proportion and for politics of the conservative kind. We'll go in the arena with Charlton Heston tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Easter bunnies across much of the United States, take note, or you could find yourselves late for a very important date, Sunday. It's time again to hop forward 1 hour. That's right, daylight saving time returns to most of the U.S. at 2 a.m. Sunday. Most Americans will want to turn their clocks and watches ahead 1 hour before they turn in Saturday night.
Teams of high school engineers-to-be gather later this month in Florida for an important competition.
Their minds and hands are at work designing the machinery of the future. And as CNN's Dick Wilson reports in our Tomorrow Today segment, there is nothing dull about this classroom.
It may look and sound like a TV game show or a sports event, but it's actually an academic exercise, the kind a classroom rarely provides. This is the Clinton High School team getting ready for the regional championships in the U.S. First Robotics competition.
U.S. First teams are designed to create the excitement of team sports competition, but for a serious purpose, promoting the study of science and technology by high school students.
The Clinton High team won the first national championships a few years back. The students, from freshmen to seniors, work with engineers from its sponsor, Nipro, a nearby company that makes a wide variety of plastic parts. Each team gets a standardized kit they must use to build a robotic machine that must carry out a preset task.
The object of this machine is to pick up 24-inch diameter balls on the front end of the machine and elevate that to a pick-and-place device that we're going to use to transport the ball from our machine into the goal.
Down in the bowels of the company workrooms, the team works with Nipro engineer Lisa Sandberg on this year's design.
Lisa, tell me what's going on here right now.
Well, right now, we are working on our second mock-up design of the universal joint for the suction cup.
This year's challenge to design and build a radio-controlled machine to pick up large and small balls and dump them into the goal faster than the competition. It's a dirt under the fingernails experience, and it's not just a boys' club for those interested in science.
Now that I got working on the computers and realizing what the engineers do, it's really interesting.
And the girls have as much opportunity as the boys to work on the machines that they want to work on.
We learn to work with one another, not to fight, and cooperate with each other.
All that cooperation paid off at the regional finals in Manchester, New Hampshire, where dozens of teams from the Northeast competed. The Clinton High School team finished in the top 8 in the regional contest. For the winner, it's on to the national competition later this month at Epcot Center in Florida. Dick Wilson, CNN, Clinton, Massachusetts.
Tomorrow Today appears on CNN's Future Watch and Science and Technology Week. Brought to you by IBM, solutions for a small planet.
Elle devient plus petite.
Ogni giorno la rete globale di computer.
To desu ka?
Poszperaj po dalekiej starej bibliotece.
Gerðu litlu búin á Savalins að smá fjölþjóðafyrirtæki. Curious?
Vil IBM være hos dem?
Just plug in!
Messi og ég Wong.
Sir, what's it like living at the typical mid-priced business hotel?
It's okay if you're big on self-denial.
Because you deserve better, ITT Sheraton introduces 4 Points Hotels. Sir, how are the communication services at your mid-priced business hotel?
Sometimes you get through, sometimes you don't.
Because you deserve better communications, ITT Sheraton introduces 4 Points Hotels.
Primitive investors were always stalking the bull, fearing the bear, chasing the fast buck. Slowly, some investors came to understand seasons and cycles. They worked to build wealth and preserve it, to thrive when others fought to survive. Are you counting on making a killing? Or have you evolved into a more civilized investor? Ask your financial advisor about Kemper funds to start building tomorrows today.
Sunday on CNN Presents. 10 years after the world's worst nuclear accident, the effects of Chernobyl are just beginning to be understood. But as some people return to this region of the Ukraine, the threat of an even bigger disaster lies entombed under tons of concrete. Could Chernobyl be a nightmare waiting to happen again? Chernobyl, legacy of a meltdown. On the next CNN Presents, Sunday, 9 Eastern.
It was raining marshmallows in Detroit, Michigan today. A helicopter dropped thousands of the marshmallows as an Easter gift to the city's children. And in New York, youngsters got a head start hunting for Easter eggs. The Easter egg extravaganza in Central Park included an Easter egg roll, as well as a hunt for the golden egg.
A white Christmas, now that's just fine, but a white Easter? Ted Texter, what is going on?
You won't be able to pick out the Easter bunny in some places in the east. It's snowing now, some mixture in here too from the Great Lakes region farther eastward to the coast. We expect that to continue through the day tomorrow. It's kind of a mess, but there's a lot of cold air sliding in from the north and from the west. The moisture as a low travels on up the coast. It's thrown back into it, so we expect more of the unseasonably, cold, cool stuff, and it's very, very snowy in some spots. Great Lakes region again, Michigan, the Great Lakes state, and the lower peninsula anyway. On to the east, some mixture in here, back into the western Pennsylvania, New York state. And farther west, you'll find some more rain. Back into the Dakotas, the western provinces, more of the mess. North and west, some rain to continue there, and the mountains a little bit milder, though. So we'll expect more rain. Higher passes, some snow, a good possibility. Morning time, snow showers. There is the low, the cold air already pretty much in place. Sliding to the south, it will begin to clear out the extreme south and east. But a little bit of sunshine will help to warm you up. Not a real good day, but better than the past one. Farther south into Florida, more rain is expected. Look across the plains. Snow expected, the Dakotas down into Nebraska, westward, more rain showers all the way to the coast up into B.C., British Columbia, more rain showers there. Mild and hot, in fact, in the south and the west. But look at the east, still in the 30s, still below freezing in some cases, warming up a little bit above freezing in others. By Sunday evening, we still see more snow. Could be some accumulation because of the low just perched out there. In fact, will blast you right into Monday. Still there it is, enough cold air around, more snow showers from James Bay to the Great Lakes. South, a new low developing, more rain and even some snow into Louisville, Kentucky. Detailed forecast for your day now. Viewing from, headed to Europe into Sunday evening. A low-pressure center in the middle of the continent. More snow for parts of Germany farther southward. A bit of fog east of there, well into the eastern sections of the Black Sea. A low makes some rain, some windy conditions too. Up into Russia, western sections, high pressure clear. And look west, you'll find kind of a dirty high into the British Isles, onto the continent. Some fog, maybe a bit of rain. That's your weather. Back to Martin on the news desk.
Thank you, Ted. Well, spring or no spring, baseball's in full swing. And for the latest now, we turn to Larry Smith. Larry?
Well, coming up next on Sports Saturday for our domestic and Canadian audiences only, we've got all the baseball for you. The Indians still looking for their first win at the J, taking on the Blue Jays. Likewise for the Red Sox, they look to Roger Clemens to break them out of their winless mode in the first week of the season. All the golf for you, the tradition, Jack Nicklaus making a run, also Bell South Classic for the PGA, the tune-up of the Masters. Baseball, and the latest on Allen Iverson as well, some Olympic news and more when Michael Lanos joins me for Sports Saturday, coming up in a couple of moments, again for our domestic and Canadian audiences only. Martin?
Thank you, Larry. And that's all for this edition of CNN's Prime News. I'm Martin Savage in Atlanta.
And I'm Jean Meserve in Washington. We leave you with a look at the famous cherry blossoms, now in full bloom and full glory in the nation's capital.
tonight on Larry King Week.